expressed on the following program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership.
Phoenix, Arizona. Brother Mike back on the radio, hardcorechristianity.com. Thank you for your time today. Thanks for tuning in. May God richly bless you. Today's Bible study, The Rise of the Antichrist. Everybody's interested in him because, believe it or not, man, he's right around the corner. He's a few years away. He'll probably be here within a decade, for sure. I think I'm going to see him in my lifetime. You better call somebody now and tell them the radio program's on. I'll make some announcements. You make the call. This is Brother Mike. I'm the counselor from the House of Healing in Central Phoenix. We're on 11th Street, and we're just south of Indian School Road in the heart of Maricopa County. We're west of the 51 freeway and east of the VA hospital. If you go to the website, you'll see all of our services there. Wednesday night is our midweek service for healing, deliverance, and teaching. Our Thursday night service is an individual prayer night. If you come, we'll pray for you personally and individually on Thursday evenings. And Friday night's my teaching service for my radio listeners. And next month in October, you will be seeing a seminar. You need to sign up for that. America and the Rise of the False Prophet. He's actually the main figure in the course of human history. And it's not the Antichrist, it's the false prophet. He's the one that actually sets him up. You won't want to miss that seminar in October. It's free. You can register off the website. There's a crash coming. You may need to sell your home. If you do, you want to sell it and save money, go to the website, page 1, and go to the bottom and hit West USA Realty. You can sell your home for reduced commissions and fees. Why pay more? May God bless you. All of the radio programs 24/7 are on soundcloud.com/hardcore-christianity 24 hours a day. The rise of the Antichrist. People are making all kinds of money off the Antichrist. I mean, he is raking in the dough. There's books, there's DVDs, there's CDs, there's all kinds of stuff about him. But actually, I know this is going to sound strange, the more people study it, the more they seem to complicate it. The way I search the texts of the scriptures is I look to uncomplicate it. I always look for the simplest and the most direct interpretation. And believe it or not, the Antichrist and his rise to power is not all that hard to understand. And you can read the text yourself. There's too many verses to go through in such a short radio program. But in Daniel chapter 7, the great prophet describes the Antichrist and explains that he rises, he comes to power out of the 10 kingdoms of the old Roman Empire. The old Roman Empire. And as you know, the old Roman Empire was after several of the other prophecies in Daniel. For example, the rise of the great one, Alexander the Great, in 323 BC, was predicted in Daniel chapter 8. And the vast area that he conquered was very similar to the old Roman Empire in the future. And when Alexander the Great, as you know, died, Daniel 11 predicted it, and that his kingdom would be split up. And in fact, that's what happened. It was split up into 4 sections, which pretty much, not completely, but pretty much covered the Roman Empire in the future. But if you go forward a few hundred years, Rome at its height is mentioned in Daniel 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Around 117 AD, Rome hit its pinnacle, and that is the area that Daniel was talking about, that the Antichrist in the future was going to rise. And if you'll look in this text, you'll find that in Daniel 8, it's narrowed down, which is very interesting. He rises out of one of the 10 kingdoms of the old Roman Empire, but it's broken down or narrowed down into 4 areas. And those 4 areas are currently occupied by Greece, Turkey, Syria, and Egypt. So the Antichrist can't come from America or Australia or the North Pole. He has to come from some country inside the old Roman Empire and inside the 4 sections of the old Roman Empire. So it must be Greece, Turkey, Syria, or Egypt. In Daniel 9 and 11 and Micah 5 and Isaiah 14 and Isaiah 30 and Isaiah 31, in those chapters, the Antichrist is given names by these prophets. One of the names is the prince that shall come. The other name is the Assyrian. Well, if you go back to 824 BC and you go forward to 671 BC, which is the era of the Assyrian Empire, it covers the exact 4 sections that we're talking about here, in particular one of them, which is Syria. In Daniel chapter 11, he's called, quote, the king of the north at the time of the end. And if you take a look at Syria, it's currently being war-torn and it's being restructured. And Syria is north of Israel. In Isaiah 14, another clue is given to us. He is the king of Babylon. And Babylon, as you know, was part of the same area we're talking about here. That includes Syria. And the final name that he's given is, he is called the Assyrian. He's actually called the Assyrian. So the bottom line is, it's relatively simple. After this shakeup is done in Syria and the country is restructured, the Antichrist will probably come out of Syria. And he comes after the rapture. He comes after the rapture. Yeah, here it is, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. The mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now lets, that's the Greek word, kateko. It means to hold down or press down. Only he who now holds it down or presses it down will let until he be taken out of the way. Then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. It says right there, then, after the church is removed, then the wicked one will be revealed. And then in the next verse, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9, he mentions the power of the false prophet, and that's the subject of my seminar in October, the rise of the false prophet. It says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. The Antichrist shows up after the church is removed, and the false prophet is the key figure as we end human history. He gives the power and the miracles to establish the Antichrist's reign on the planet Earth. Can you imagine it? It only makes common sense, though, doesn't it? Most of the prophecies in the Bible all relate to the Middle East. America is not mentioned in the Bible even one time. Neither's Canada, neither's Mexico. And you go through all these other countries. They called Iraq for years the cradle of civilization. It's really true, isn't it? Noah ended up on Mount Ararat, which would be northeast of Iraq, and he migrated down from there, and that's kind of where civilization restarted. It was the location of the Tower of Babel and so many important places in the Old Testament. They're all located over in the Middle East. And people come up with all kinds of weird theories about where the Antichrist is going to come from. And what they're doing is they're just making up stuff so they can make money. They want to sell the DVDs and the the books and everything. The idea is to generate revenue off of a coming crisis, kind of like the fake blood moon thing. Everybody was writing books about blood moon and CDs and DVDs and YouTube videos. That was the next big thing for people to make money off of. And every time something comes along that has a disaster attached to it and has religion attached to it, guess what happens? People try to make money off of it. When in fact, in many cases, the Bible is so clear and so simple, people just don't want to accept it. They want to make something incredible about it, and they want to make something so spectacular, and they want to make it seem like it's going to apply to us. So people try to get other people to panic, when in fact this whole thing's a scam. You and I will never see the Antichrist unless, and the Bible does teach this, and I'm doing this on a radio program later this week, unless the born-again Christian misses the rapture. And that's the key issue. That's the subject nobody really teaches on. In fact, nobody ever teaches on. I'm the only person that I know of that's ever taught that a born-again Christian can miss the rapture. I go into detail later on in another radio show, but the key to it all is not worrying about the Antichrist in the end times, or where he's going to be born at in Syria or Greece, where he's going to rise out of. That's not the key, and there isn't going to be any way to figure out the name or his number of his name or the 666 until we actually know what his name is. There isn't any way to do it. Bible kooks and religious people have applied the numbers of the Greek text or the numbers of the Hebrew text to leaders in the past, and they've stuck them on different people, like Hitler and Mussolini and the popes, different popes, and so on. But there's no way to figure out who the 666 is until you actually know that person's name to see if it measures out to 666. But the whole thing's a scam. What you should be doing is spreading the glorious gospel of Christ with healing and salvation and deliverance all over the state of Arizona, all over the country. If we were focusing on the true gospel of Christ, nobody would be worrying about the Antichrist. Everybody would be getting filled with the Spirit and healed and delivered from demons, which is exactly what we're trying to do here at the House of Healing. Focusing on the glorious gospel of Christ and his ability to redeem and save even the lost, sickest people, that is the true gospel of Christ. See you next time.
The views expressed on the preceding program are those of the host and not necessarily those of staff, management, or ownership. This program has been sponsored by Michael W. Smith.